Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn how to use the shortcut method to calculate arithmetic mean for the continuous series. So first let's look at the problem which we are trying to solve and with the method we are trying to solve it. So we are given marks in class intervals. That means there are groups made up to divide the 100 or 80 marks which students get into 0 to 10 marks, students who have got between 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40 and so on. Then we are given frequency or the number of students who have got marks between a particular range or between a particular class interval. So in the class interval 20 to 30 there are 20 students who have scored and 40 students have scored between 30 and 40 and only 4 students have scored between 70 and 80. So we are given students and the frequency of scoring in a certain range or class interval. Now how do we find the arithmetic mean of this scores of this particular class? So we'll use the shortcut method. The first step in the shortcut method is that first we calculate the mid values of each class interval. So the middle value between 0 and 10 is 5. Between 10 and 20 is 15. Now how do you calculate this? If you can't visually identify the midpoint, those of you who find it difficult, the simple way is add the upper limit and the lower limit of each class interval and divide it by 2. So 32 plus 20 is 50 divided by 2, 25. 40 plus 30 is 70 divided by 2, 35. 50 plus 40 is 90 divided by 2, 45 and so on. So you can easily calculate the midpoint by joining or adding the upper limit and the lower limit and dividing it by 2. Alright? Okay. So now we can see that we have the mid values, we have the frequency for each class interval. Now the next step is we have to assume any of the mid values as a provisional mean. Here we will take a is equal to 35 as a provisional mean. You can take any number which is not even in this table as your provisional mean, but it helps if it is a central value because it will make your calculations easier, and the goal of the shortcut method is to make calculation easier. So we'll take the central value a is equal to 35. You could also take an a is equal to 45. Now we'll calculate the difference between each mid value and the assumed mean. So our assumed mean is 35. That means we'll subtract 35 from each mid value here. That means 5 minus 35, 15 minus 35, 25 minus 35, 35 minus 35 and so on. So when we calculate that we get minus 30, minus 20, minus 10, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. Now the next step, once we have calculated this differences between the mid values and the assumed mean, we have to multiply the frequency with every corresponding mid value or the deviation value. So here the deviation value is minus 30. We have to multiply it with 5, we get minus 150. Minus 20 into 10, we get minus 200 and so on. Okay. So now next step, we calculate the multiple of frequency and the difference value. So we get minus 150, minus 200, minus 200, 300, 400, 300, 160. So just to repeat, we are multiplying the differences which we have calculated with the frequency of that particular class interval. So when we get 30 as our difference for 60 to 70 class interval, we multiply it with the frequency of 10, we get the total f into d as 300. The 40 is multiplied with the 4 to get the f into d of 160. Now once we have calculated this, we can directly add up all the values and find the sigma ft or the sum of all the ft's. Or we can simplify this. How? We can cancel out the similar values on the positive and negative side because we know anyway they are going to cancel out. So suppose let's take the first one. We have minus 200 which adds up to minus 400 and we have a 400 on the positive side. So we can cancel both of them out, right? Similarly, now next we have minus 150 left on the negative side. We have 300, 300, 160. So we can cancel out the 160 which leaves us with 10. So now it becomes simpler for us because we have to add only 3 positive numbers 300, 300 and 10. Once we add that we get a sigma fd of 610 and we get a n of 139 which is the sum of all the frequencies. Now we use this values and input it into the formula for arithmetic mean. to solve for the arithmetic mean. So we take the arithmetic mean formula A plus sigma FD by N. This A is the assumed mean. The assumed mean was 35. A is equal to 35. So we plug in 35. Sigma FD is 610 and N is 139, which is the sum of all the frequencies. Now once we have calculated, we have simplified using a calculator. 610 by 139, we get 4.39. We just add it up to get our arithmetic mean as 39.39. This is the answer.